first Rhino Charge was in 1989. I was a competitor. I was a competitor for the first 5 charges. So 1989 to 1993, I was a competitor. And the first Rhino Charge was at the base of Suswa, between southern side of Suswa, between Suswa and Magadi. And it was a mass start in those days. Everybody just lined up on a piece of ground, and off you went. Nothing like we have today. And I was in a team with Bruce Field, and he didn't want to come and camp at the venue because it wasn't that far away from Nairobi, and so we all lined up. The start was, I think, at 7:30, and some official from KWS flagged it off, and Bruce hadn't arrived yet. So all the other cars, and there were only about 20 of them, was not many. All the other cars left, and I was left sitting in the car waiting for Bruce to arrive. And then, of course, we could see the car coming, the road in from the Narok Road. It was that the entrance in was a place called, you remember it, Duka Moja. And in those days it was Duka Moja, just one tin hut. Now it's a town. And then I heard or saw Bruce coming down the side. So that was about 10 minutes from getting to the start. So I just sat there for 10 minutes waiting for Bruce to come. And when he came, he just left his car in the field, jumped into the car that I'd driven, the rally car, and off we went. So that was the beginning of the Rhino Charge for me. And there were only 5 controls that first Rhino Charge, and yeah, it was very, very simple, straightforward, but quite tough. This was a Pajero, the old type of Pajero, and it was a standard car, absolutely standard, nothing done to it at all. We just drove in a straight line. I was amazed how you can drive in a straight line through the bush. The only thing that stopped you were big rocks. The rest you just drove straight through. So, as I say, for the first 5 years, I was a competitor, and my hobby was motorsport, rallying. I was a rally navigator. In those days, the rally was a big thing here. Of course, funded on the Safari Rally, but we had many rallies during the year in Uganda and in Tanzania. So rallying was the big thing, and as a rally navigator, I was asked by Bruce to navigate for him, and so the first 3 years I navigated for Bruce in various cars, and then for the 4th and 5th year I navigated for Jim Heather Hayes. So then, come 1993, one Sunday morning I was sitting here, and one of the founder organizers, a guy called Brian Howarth, he drove in here one Sunday morning, and he said, Rob Coombs, who was the clerk of the course, the initial clerk of the course, has passed away as a result of an accident, freak accident, whereby a branch from a gum tree broke off and went through the windscreen and killed him. And he said, because I was one of the, I suppose you could call it, biggest critics of the event, I was always not arguing but discussing ways of improving the event with them. He asked me whether I would be prepared to join the team, organizing team. Well, from there it's just history. Yes, I agreed to do that, and for the first 2 years Brian and I organized it together. And so we come to 1995, and Brian got a job with Homegrown, you know, the flower people, and his boss said to him, "No Rhino Charge for you. You work 24/7 for me." And so I was on my own from there on. And yeah, from there on until 2012, I ran the Rhino Charge. So for 18 years, I ran the Rhino Charge, and it grew from a fairly small thing to nearly what it is now. In 2012, I started looking for somebody else to take it over, because it had grown so big, and it wasn't changing in any way, because one of the main things that I insisted on was that the format of the event doesn't change. It's exactly, and in fact even today, it's exactly as it was when it first started. You know, the principle of just going through the bush, finding however many controls you've got to find, and getting back to where you started, and the car with the shortest distance wins. That's it. And that's still the same today. And so I'd run it for these 18 or 19 years, and I felt that it needed some new ideas. And I'd identified somebody who I worked with, David Lowe. I worked with him, and I persuaded him to give it a go. But of course, it was something that was my whole life for 20 years, and so I wasn't prepared to turn my back on it. And I of course just joined the team, the organizing team, to help with it in whatever way they wanted. And that's still the case today. Dave has since handed over to Don White, the third clerk of the course, and Don happens to be my son-in-law. As you know, Tracy's my daughter. But yeah, I still help in whatever way I can. Well, actually, the day of the Rhino Charge is not very active until something goes wrong. You wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and go down and get your convoy, because the starters are taken out to the controls in a convoy, and so I'm always a convoy leader, and so I have to be there by 5. So we lead our convoy out to the control, and then usually I'm given that area as a search and rescue, one of the search and rescue teams in that area, to stay in and around the area and keep an eye on what's going on. Of course, we're in contact with the aircraft and Don, the clerk of the course, and he would ask us, look, there's a car missing here in this area, go and see where it is and find it and make sure everything's okay. And that goes on all day. Volunteering was part of our DNA. Motorsport in Kenya in those days was run by volunteers, completely run by volunteers, and it was just the way we did things. None of us have been paid. I've never been paid a shilling for the 6 years that the Rhino Charge has been going. In fact, it's cost me a lot of money of my own. But that's the same for everybody. Nobody is paid, and it's a principle which we will always stick to. And the minute you start paying people, then it all goes wrong, as we've seen with the safari. Yeah, and it just grew. It just became part of my life. Of course, the Rhino Charge is not just a one-day event. It used to take me 35 or 36 days on the venue to organize it. And 36 days on the venue represents about 6 months of the year, because you always have to be. You can only be there in your spare time. I had a job, and you can only be there in your spare time. So weekends, long weekends, 36 days represents 6 months. So and that's on the venue, and that you have to find a venue before that. So 8 months of the year, every spare minute is Rhino Charge, and that's been the case for 30 years. The dedication that these volunteers give, I mean, okay, mine is an extreme case, but I had 5 or 6 people in my committee who gave up nearly as much time as I did, and it just becomes something that is part of your life, and the cause. When you see what Rhino Charge has done for the country, supporting Rhino Ark and what they do, I mean, it becomes a great incentive, and because you can see results. I mean, when you think that probably Nairobi would have no water today without the Rhino Charge, it's quite a thing. Well, it's good fun. That's you've got to enjoy being in the bush. You've got to enjoy just getting to know somewhere. You get to know an area so well, the people in it, because you're working with the community. You get to know them very well, and it's good fun. Recce is by far the most fun of any Rhino Charge. Going out in the bush and just being in a tent and walking around, because initially we have to walk there, no roads, nothing. We have to walk and find controls, and then build tracks to the controls with the local guys. Yeah, it's great. But Rhino Ark is an NGO which initially was to save animals. That's how it started out with the founder Ken Cool. He was using fences to control deforestation, and that's how it started out. But of course, that didn't go down well with a lot of people, because they saw it as just preventing communities from access to a forest. But very soon, the communities realized that once the animals were not coming out of the forest and raiding their crops and threatening their children going to school and all of that, they switched to positive, from negative to positive, and then it became not an overnight success story, but it gained massively as an NGO, because it was helping communities, not only animals. And so that's one thing I don't think people who are new realize what Rhino Ark does. It does so much towards the human-wildlife conflict, to getting rid of that. For many years, Rhino Charge was the only way that Rhino Ark got any money. It was its major sponsor for many years. I mean, the last 10, 15 years, not so much. because Rhino Arc have got their own ways of raising money, and very successful now. But even now, I think Rhino Charge generates nearly 50% of Rhino Arc's income, and so that's a very worthy cause to work for, and to have a cause like that you enjoy as well. Yeah, I love it. I love being in the bush. I love watching these idiots wreck their cars and themselves. They're mad. For something that I built up from almost nothing to what it is today, I'm not going to turn my back on it, ever. I will do anything to make sure it succeeds. Well, it's been 30 years of my life. It's my main hobby, has been my main hobby. I was a quantity surveyor, chartered quantity surveyor. I had my own practice, which helped a lot because I could give myself leave whenever I wanted it. But 4 years ago I retired, so now there's I don't have anything other to do. One of my main jobs, as you'll see in the office behind you, is to look after all the radios for Rhino Arc. That is a big job. We have 135 radios now, which have to be maintained, fully charged. I'm charging them up now, ready for briefing next weekend, so that when we hand them out, all the batteries are charged, everything is in good order, testing. Yeah, that's my official task, but then once we get there, there are many others. As with all volunteers, as with all officials, that you do whatever you're asked to do. You might have a main one, but there are many others. I don't know, you'll have to ask them, but whatever they say, they have to take it the way it is. I've tried, very unsuccessfully. I don't think you can ever understand a Rhino Charge without actually being there. You can't believe what goes on. It's so wide, there's so many things that happen. I think you can just explain to them how it works, and that's very, very simple, as you know. A car is given a start position in the middle of the bush and a map, and told for 10 hours you visit every other control and come back here in 10 hours. That's it. That's all you have to do. But we make sure that's not very easy. I don't have any spare time. I don't have any spare time. As I told you, preparing a Rhino Charge takes 8 to 9 months. And even today I'm involved in finding a venue, all the recce's, getting the course set, and yeah, I'm involved all the way down the line, even now. A venue. Well, it's changed a lot. When I first started, I knew the country pretty well from being in the rally scene. We drove around the country, the whole country, and just by looking out of the window, you can see the sort of country that you need. But in the early days, we had to just go to an area which we thought was good, and talk to the locals and find out who's the guy of influence here, who's the chief, who's got influence, and then talk to them. Of course, trying to explain to these guys what Rhino Charge was not very easy. They couldn't believe it. It had no reputation in those days. Just to explain to them what you wanted, and you're looking at an area of about 10 kilometers by 10 kilometers, no fences. Communal land ownership is important. It was not easy, and as I say, you had to make friends in the area with the influential people. And as it evolved, of course, you get guys coming and saying, well, you were talking to the wrong guy, I'm the boss. The guy you were talking to wasn't the boss. And so it was But nowadays it's very, very different. With conservancies now and the organisation behind the conservancy movement now, we get conservancies 3 or 4 every year coming to us and say, please come and do the Rhino Charge on one of our conservancies, which makes it a lot easier. The conservancies have a structure, they have a committee. You're not talking to the wrong guy. You've got a committee there who knows what you're doing. We have a reputation. The community gets good money out of it. So it's much easier now, a venue, than it was in my early days. But it's evolved. That didn't happen overnight. It came to that. It's very different now from what it was. But the venues, it's still a big area. We use smaller venues now because we have to. There isn't that space available anymore. But it's fine, no problem. 6 by 6 kilometers. A venue gives you a good course now. It's more technical, and yeah. But finding a venue now, or selecting a venue, we don't have to find it anymore. We have 3 or 4 offers normally every year, and because it makes money for the conservancy, they're keen to have us. I think the worst case was at a venue called Old Kinye, which is near the Mara, and the weather was unkind to us. The access was not very easy. There wasn't a made-up road to the access, and the day before scrutineering there was a pretty heavy thunderstorm, and the day of scrutineering at 11 o'clock only one competitor had got to the venue, and I put on 10 years in that event, grew 10 years older in one day. But by 6 o'clock in the evening everybody had come and off we went. But that was very, very tough. The weather was bad. Even getting to the controls was very difficult. Yeah, and to try and keep it all flowing. You see, I mean, even in El Kinye days, which El Kinye was about 2006. It's a long time ago. Even then, we had over 1,000 people on the venue. Catering for now it's 3,500 people on the venue. And just finding water for them is a nightmare. That's one of the things we have to arrange. We have to organize all that. So it's quite a big organization now. One of the funniest moments was taking George out of a crevasse which he reversed into. But I think the genuine funniest moment was the venue was a place called Mugi. In the middle of the day, the control officer called me up and he said, "Anton, we've got a couple here, husband and wife team from a Suzuki. They weren't very serious competitors, but they turned up at a control on foot. They had lost their car in a forest. Their car got stuck, so they walked away from it to find how to get out, and they couldn't find their way back to their car. So they came across a local guy who knew where there was a control, so he took them to the control. So now there was these two at a control, but they'd lost their car. Anyway, of course, we found it quite quickly with it from aircraft, and we repatriated them with their car after about 2 hours, and they carried on. So I suppose that's the funniest time. My musical background was in the 60s. I was at school, and I happened to be a member of a rock band at school, and of course in the 60s the big band the famous band of the 60s was the Beatles, of course. And there are two songs with titles which sum up the Rhino Charge very well. One of their songs is called "A Hard Day's Night." Now, when I was the clerk of the course in the beginning, of course, I had to do everything. I did the results, everything. So after the end of the day at 5:30, I now had to go through the route cards myself and Belinda. And normally we finished the results at about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, having to go through route cards. There were no GPSs or anything like that. It was all done, written cards. As they came to a control, the control officer would look at their time, but also look at the distance on their. In the early days, the distance was the odometer on the car. And so they used to write it down on the card, and then all the cards were collected in the evening, and we had to go through all those cards and calculate with a calculator the difference between each control. So it was a hard day's night running the kennel. But I think unselfishly, the best, again, another Beatles song with a title that sums up the Rhino Charge, is a song called "With a Little Help from My Friends," because it's a team effort, and without the team you're never gonna make it, and you have to have that team. And even 15 years ago, the team, the officials, was 100 members, 100 officials to put it all together and keep it running. Now, of course, it's more, but it's a team effort. This book was put together by Gavin Bennett, who I've always admired as a writer. I knew him from the rally days. He put it together. It was the first 30 years of the Rhino Charge. This book covers the first 30 years of the Rhino Charge, and it's a very, very good book, and covers the spirit of the charge, which I think is very important. And Gavin is the guy who put it together. Gavin Bennett used to write all the press releases for motorsport in my days of rallying. It's massive. There's no hint on the horizon that it will fade yet. And of course now there are people with influence to bring serious money, and that's what it's for. It's to raise money for Rhino Arc, and that's what it's there for. And we all have fun doing it. So it's a magic formula put together by three gentlemen. Ken Cool, who is the original director of Rhino Arc, Rob Coombs, who's the guy who was killed, and Brian Howarth. Those three guys put the whole idea together, and it still endures today. It's exactly what they put together as an event then. It's exactly the same today.